Welcome to the Sleeping Barber podcast.
Good morning.
Yeehaw! It is.
Oh, hold on. Yahoo! Is it not?
Yahoo.
I've been watching. Is it not?
My typical free cowboy hat here to celebrate
Oh.
the start of the Stampede.
There you go.
July 5th. Let's go. Let's celebrate
Yahoo!
Calgary. Yahoo! I tip my hat to you.
For anybody listening that doesn't know what we're talking about, Stampede is like
Mardi Gras? What would you
Mardi
call
Gras with cows and cowboys.
That's exactly what the organizing committee would love to hear.
Yeah,
Let's describe it as.
exactly. But good hat.
Thanks, man.
Mm-hmm. So what are we doing?
Well, we're back for another Barber's Brief.
Yeah,
Who's excited? I'm excited. I'm always excited.
I'm excited.
I love these.
They're very
segments.
good. Yeah.
If this is your first time listening, Mark and I use this forum to discuss things that have caught our eye in both marketing and a business world. We like to highlight a marketing moment or a case study. We get into our audience Q&A, and of course, we always finish off with an ad of the week. Mark, how are you feeling this morning?
V, I'm pretty good. I'm very excited. It was Canada Day yesterday. Happy
off
Canada
the-
Day.
Canada Day to you too.
Yeah, thanks. I'm very excited. Let's get into this, V.
What do we have? I'm first, actually.
You got the first one, yeah.
I got the first one. Okay, we've talked about Nike before, but Nike.
Nike.
Maybe that's my Western voice coming in a little bit.
You got some
Nike
Nike.
ramps up innovation to combat sales and slip into a transition year. That's horrible. I am so sorry, everybody.
I really like that.
Anyways, the TLDR here is Nike's intensifying its focus on innovation and repositioning itself to regain competitiveness after facing sales declines over recent quarters. Now, by looking to accelerate newness and innovation to enhance competitiveness. Now, the reason this one stood out to me, you talked about last week NVIDIA and how they were spending more money. What was it? Was it 10%?
Yeah, well, they spent. Yeah, I forget the number, but there was a huge amount of money
On R&D.
in R&D. Yeah,
So it sounds like Nike's kind of taking the same approach. So first of all, their fourth quarter revenue fell by 2% to 12.6 billion, with direct-to-consumer sales down 8%. Their direct-to-consumer sales continuously goes down, actually. I think that's been something that a lot of people have written about, so I'm not going to spend too much time on this. Their full year revenue for 2024 was 51.4 billion, which was up versus the previous year, but it's still somewhat not the growth that Nike's always looking for.
mm-hmm.
Now, they anticipate that they're going to run into a really challenging first quarter in 2025 with an expected revenue decline of about 10%. So they're seeing this trend from now, and they're like, we got to change things.
Yeah.
So some key strategic shifts include an accelerated innovation pipeline to help increase speed to market. Initiatives like Bowerman Footwear Lab. I didn't have time to really look into that more, but they're basically, it aims to expedite design and production processes. So it looks like they've stood up its own kind of like a new lab of sorts to help pump up the products. And then Nike plans to focus on maximizing full price sales and reducing promotions. Now, we've talked about that before. I want to say a few months ago that they were headed in that direction.
Mm-hmm.
So it'll be interesting to see what that actually means. You and I have had a shared time in retail where Nike already controlled what things went on sale when. So it'll be interesting what that iteration really looks like. And finally, they're planning to be in significant investments on earmarked for consumer-facing activities, design, and even sports marketing. And they're even planning or hoping that the Paris Olympics has been highlighted by them as a crucial moment for the brand communication and new campaigns. So be interesting to see what we see from Nike around the Olympics as well.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, definitely. I know I saw something similar, and they were talking about how all these new brands, emerging brands like Hookah and One or On.
Yeah.
You know, there's all these new competitor brands that we're stealing and clawing away some market share from. So yeah, an interesting one. Also interesting, that seems to be a pattern where when brands don't do well, they're like, we got to reinvest in innovation, R&D, and more marketing. But then when things are going well, they're like, let's cut it. There's like such a yo-yo effect there.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
What'd you find?
Well, Ritson was on the WARC podcast. And it was a really interesting podcast. So if anyone hasn't listened to it yet, we'll include a link here. But David Tillman, who we've had on the show, did a great job with this interview. It was from Cannes. And Ritson had done, which I think is brilliant. He did a presentation called "Creativity is Not Enough" in Cannes, where all these people are there to celebrate creativity. It's brilliant.
The game,
yeah. And so I think that's one of the lessons is like having a talk on creativity is not enough in front of an audience that's all about creativity is really a good way to provoke conversation. And generally, I think it's probably a good idea to do that in a lot of places, maybe more often than we do. Anyway, creative is important, but in context, it's only part of the promotional aspect of the 4 Ps. And his argument was, it goes on, talks a lot about a lot more. But one of his things is that we can't forget about the other 3 Ps. And specifically, pricing and product aren't necessarily under the purview and the remit entirely of the marketing departments, but because we have a superpower in market research, there's a lot that we have an ability to influence on pricing strategy, like things like positioning for pricing, price anchoring. There's a whole bunch of things. Price is just a static thing, but perceived value is a whole other thing, which I thought was a really good point. And then on the product side, he makes a really funny comment about the gnomes in Switzerland, I think, who manufacture products. It's a great visual. But just generally how, like, once a product is released, oftentimes that's it. It's done. It's over. Kind of like the Nike story we were just talking about.
Yeah.
And so with market research, again, market orientation, a lot of marketers have the ability to feed that back into the product development team and do updates and help improve the product going forward. So it's not just a one and done thing, which I thought was really influential. And again, part of the reason why he titled the topic the way he did, pricing isn't enough, or sorry, creativity isn't enough.
Yeah. Like we said at the onset, like he just has this knack for creating that. What is that? It's not a contrarian view, because I wouldn't argue like what he talked about, I think, is still fundamentally core to marketing. Our influence on things like pricing and product, I think, is just reiterates. I know we did that talk, I want to say 4 months ago almost at Mount Royal local university here. And we talked about the 4 Ps and our influence as a marketing department on them, even though we may not control them entirely. So while I would argue, I don't think there was anything really net new that was really shared there. I think it was a very timely reminder to marketers that were there to celebrate creativity. That's like, yeah, this is great, but remember, like, you got to be doing other things as well. So I thought that was really well timed on his side. Well, we got a rebrand, kind of. I'm not a real runner, so like this one doesn't really strike home with me. But I did share this with some of my running friends, and the Boston Marathon got a new logo, and it sounds like there's an uproar. People, you don't want runners not happy. So back in 1880, I guess the organizing committee at the time, they went with this mythical unicorn as kind of like their primary logo. It was dubbed Spike. Okay. And I know this will make a lot more sense to all the runners out there that really probably follow this. It did go through a small redesign where basically instead of it facing left, it now faces right. Marathon is in a different font as well. But I think the biggest is the sponsorship side of it. So now it's like, this is something that's taken away from the legacy of the actual marathon. So the community response of the new logo has been mixed, with 55% of respondents disliking it and only 14% approving. The updated logo includes prominent Bank of America branding, as I said earlier, which again, that really, I think, sparks more of the controversy because it takes away from what it actually is. The Boston Athletic Association aimed to symbolize forward thinking with Spike's redesign, despite traditionalist pushback and corporate branding. And the new logo has raised concerns among runners about maintaining the event's purity. Is this a rebranding gone wrong, Mark?
Well, this is a good question. But you know what? Like, looking at the logo right now, I wonder if they did an assessment on the individual assets and the value of those assets, because the font is very distinctive, right? And they got rid of it. it kind of makes me think, I wonder for all the people that are in running, like for me, I'm like running and me do not go along. It is painful. And so I don't ever run. I don't like running. But if you're into running, like I kind of feel like that might be a thing. Like that might be a beacon for that brand. And by getting rid of the font style that they had, it's almost as like they're getting rid of Spike, their unicorn. Maybe. I kind of like wonder what kind of research they did to see what assets were valuable or not. And if it wasn't valuable, then sure, I guess change the logo. But to me, it's so distinctive, it kind of makes me wonder why they got rid of it.
I'm with you. And I think this goes back to like so many conversations that we've had with many of our guests, but more importantly, even with Roger Martin. It's like, what problem are you actually trying to solve with this?
Yeah, other than being able to put a sponsored logo below it, but you could fit that in otherwise. Like
you could have fit that in anyways. I don't think that changes anything. The logo itself, the history behind the event itself, I will kind of side with like the purists here in the context that, I can appreciate this is like 1890, I think was the first race. Like this is not something that happened that kicked off like 10 years ago. Yeah. So I would argue that the logo itself is probably one of the largest distinctive assets that they have. So how do you retain that? Because they even changed Spike. Like not only is he facing to the other side, his jaw is a lot more aggressive than it was. There's like little things throughout that, it's a little bit different. So anyway.
Yeah, that's a thing. I don't know. Right? Did they mess it up? I don't know. But yeah, it makes me wonder what kind of research they did to figure out what they should change before they changed it.
Some new marketing guy came in and is like, we need a rebrand.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we should see if the Boston Marathon got a new brand guy or not, because it's very possible.
All right, what do you got next?
Well, get ready for the Echoverse, V. There's a whole set of new rules for cross-channel marketing coming.
What's going on?
Yeah. Okay, so this is an article on HBR about the new rules of marketing across channel.
Okay.
So the authors of this make an argument that the internet and AI has given rise to a new kind of marketing, like a new type of strategy or new type of framework. In the past, there was promotional, there was relationship, and there was customer engagement marketing. And now, with AI, there's Echoverse marketing. They go through this whole like table and chart and deciding or like defining what each of those things are and the objectives and what makes it unique. But the Echoverse is created by omnidirectional messages and a collective value creation generated by consumers, brands, news outlets, investors, communities, society, and AI agents. The new Echoverse marketing strategy is different from the three previous traditional marketing strategies because the brand is only one actor in creating messages and value. And so the brand has to actually shift now from leading and to leading and guiding and encourage participation from others.
My head
as opposed, I know. I kind of am just calling bullshit on this. Not kind of, 100% calling bullshit on this. It's more marketing gobbledygook to me. Like, I get the AI is a thing. But, I mean, to me, this is just an updated version of integrated marketing communications. Like, campaign have you been involved in that didn't include all these other people in some way, some form?
That's exactly what I was thinking when you were reading this out. I'm like, but why is this different? What's different here exactly?
Yeah, and I also don't agree that promotional marketing, relationship marketing, and customer engagement marketing are even different. So, I mean, like, there's a whole bunch of things, and I know it's part of like what's in the literature, but it just smells of blah to me. So yeah, we just love to invent stuff. And like, it sounds great, the Echoverse. I thought they were going to go down the path of like everybody's retargeting all the time, and now you're just like, eating your own dog food. Made a bit more sense, but I don't. Yeah. Anyway,
I thought it was a reincarnation.
Don't believe
of the
everything.
Metaverse.
Yeah, don't believe everything you read.
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't had time to read the article, but like again, I don't know, man. I don't think I can subscribe to this quite yet.
It's a distraction.
It is a distraction. I agree with that.
You've got a marketing moment, which is not a distraction.
So, okay. This one's a little bit unique. Maybe not a traditional case study that we covered, but there's still a lot of key principles here I think that apply to us as marketers holistically. So this one is called, I don't know if you ever saw this. I had never seen this. And I was going through the research yesterday trying to find like a case study to highlight. And this one's called the Field Trip to Mars. It was back in 2018 is when they did this. Lockheed Martin, a global security and aerospace company, wanted to inspire interest in the Mars exploration and STEM education. Makes it really simple. The brief itself, space was at that time, and I would even argue today, is kind of experiencing a cultural renaissance, right? To rival the excitement of the space race. So you have SpaceX, you have Virgin Galactic, Mars One. Movies at the time were really starting to recapture that general public's imagination in space once again. So it was like an exciting time. I would argue it still is. I'm always fascinated by space, so maybe I'm just an oddball. But it is estimated that humans will set foot on Mars within the next 2 decades, making STEM education more important than ever. So they set out to inspire a new generation of deep space explorers, creating a VR experience that shows them what it's like to visit Mars. So essentially what happened was a bunch of kids got into a bus. This bus was retrofitted, its glass was retrofitted with 4K transparent LCD screens and incorporated like GPS accelerometers and a whole bunch of tech, really to kind of simulate a trip to Mars. So once they got in and they started driving, all of a sudden the bus goes dark, these screens come on, and all of a sudden they're like driving in Mars.
That's
so
cool.
It is really, really cool. I don't know if you have a chance to watch the video, but it was really an immersive VR experience that didn't require headsets because everything that we've done to VR to this point really is like your own view.
Personal,
it's more personal. So I have a whole bunch of here, just kind of talks about like what they went into, but let's just talk about the impact. So it generated such an extensive social media reach, if you will, and many key media outlets actually picked this up as well. So NBC, ABC, Fox, Engadget, huge on the tech scene, futurism, even digital trends. They added a lot of fuel to this fire. And it actually was a global trend within 24 hours on Facebook. And it was also, again, featured across all of these different media outlets globally as well. So in a week after its debut, Lockheed Martin saw a 3,000% increase in Mars-related conversations.
Wow.
Post-launch, 260% more interest generated than what was already there from a SpaceX perspective. So this literally, it generated the interest that they wanted. The videos of the experience itself garnered over 6 million views globally. But I think the true outcome here was the demand for the bus itself spawned this like long-term interest. So this bus actually started going on tour. Yeah, so it became almost like their own mini, I guess, almost like sales vehicle in some capacity. So like there's the education piece of this, but then there's also everything else. So there's a few things for me from a key takeaways perspective. Like the educational impact of this, I think, is huge. It was aimed to inspire the next generation of deep space explorers and re-emphasize that importance of STEM and education. Check. The cultural resonance. The campaign resonated culturally in that moment, becoming a trending topic, which obviously, again, added fuel to the fire. Yeah. Overall, it also created this incredible engagement success and the significant increase of conversation around Mars and more mentions than its competitors. So I think from that lens alone, I think one would deem like successful. The information that we don't have, because I still have Roger Martin's words ringing in my ears, just because something goes viral doesn't mean it actually worked. We don't know, did people buy into this STEM education, but what happened actually outside of this just generating more interest in Mars. So I don't know what that looks like. But when we look at it at that 30,000 foot view, I think they had a really clear brief. It was McCann, New York, that executed against this brief. And I think it was able to bring to light some really interesting, a new way of thinking of how to entice interest in something that's naturally, I think, there's a lot of curiosity around it anyway. So
it's a cool story for sure. It made me think, like, as you were talking about that, it made me think of the Sphere in Vegas. Like, so many of these things that are out there capture like attention really quickly, like a huge spike in interest, but then it's not sustained other than through, like, in this case, you talked about that you turned this into a sales tool or a roadshow kind of thing, whether they brought it around, and that's cool. It makes tons of sense. It's a really great idea, but the uniqueness of the idea is part of the thing that captures people's attention, which gets people to generate this desire to share it and all that kind of stuff and share something new, which creates that buzz. But yeah, it would be interesting to know what kind of impact it had long term on the objectives of the campaign, beside of the just like media reach that they got.
I'll be honest, like, I had never heard of Lockheed Martin before.
Really?
Personally. Yeah.
Okay.
I've heard of the other ones, so like Virgin Galactica, SpaceX, etc.
Yeah.
But this one I hadn't heard of. So for me, did it generate the brand awareness? I don't know. Maybe I wasn't the right target audience at the time anyway. So that's also another thing.
Yeah, that's a thing. Anyway, cool story.
Yeah. A little different.
Yeah, really. It was, that's such a cool idea. Okay, audience Q&A. A little bit of a different twist. It was more my question for something I saw online. I think I tagged you on this too, B. But there's a guy named John Lorenzini put up a post about the difference between ROAS, incremental ROAS, and marginal ROAS. And so I had a whole bunch of questions around that. Essentially the question is for you and me. Did you know marginal ROAS is better than incremental or regular ROAS? Go.
First of all, transparency. I didn't even know these two new measurements existed.
Yeah.
Because I personally no longer report on ROAS. Like I fundamentally do not believe in it as a metric. I honestly believe like our role shouldn't be distilled down to this KPI as something that either we optimize to or anything. So I think for me, I've kind of disassociated myself with ROAS. And when you tagged me in this, I don't know, like your story earlier, I just feel like, what are we doing here? I think I struggle with it a little bit because I think at the end, well, first of all, let's first of all define them, right? So it was ROAS, for those that don't know, indicates an audience qualification, but doesn't measure ad effectiveness, right? So it's your ability to, based on any sort of attribution model that you're running, your direct correlation with someone clicks on the ad and then is able to purchase something on the website. ROAS, incremental ROAS, measures if ads are driving incremental revenue, which makes sense. MROAS measures ads performance with the last dollar spent.
Yeah.
Now, what's the problem with iROAS for me? It's an over-focusing on iROAS can lead to overspending, I think, just by nature of the way it's positioned. And it averages performance as well, right? So it could potentially mask diminishing returns in some effect. So you're not getting a true accurate picture of incrementality. So that's my one thing. I don't know. What do you like? I struggle with these two metrics. I really do.
Yeah. So a couple of the questions I had were like, how are you attributing revenue? Because it's not like, I think you can go down the path of, and there was some really like a really thoughtful conversation in the comments. I'm struggling with like, how do you, to begin with, attribute revenue? Because if you can't get that right, then the rest of it doesn't really matter. And then in which case you're not really measuring ROAS. And so to begin with, I'm not sure you can get it right. Like, how do you know like this dollar in this medium generated this sale?
Well, the big sell on MROAS is essentially it prevents wasted budget by showing when to stop spending. That's one of the biggest reasons why. But again, to your point, how are you actually measuring it in the first place?
Well, yeah, and then you're also making an assumption. I mean, there's lots of questions, and maybe they've worked out all the details. And they did. He was really kind and put some comments to my questions in the post. But there's still lots of questions around that. Like, I'm not 100% sure. I'm not 100% sure about a lot of it. If you're trying to get growth, you're going to target all people who are in your geographic region or whatever the thing is that you're trying to target. If you're trying to target ROAS, you're not actually trying to target all the potential buyers. You're just trying to target the people who are buying now, and predominantly the people who've bought from you before.
It's for marketing audiences all over again.
Yeah. So to do that, it means you're heavily investing in people who already know about you.
Mm-hmm.
Or you're predominantly investing in people who already know about you. And so then you're really shrinking your potential for growth just to generate efficiency, which ROAS is. It's a metric for efficiency, not effectiveness. And so whether it's incremental or marginal, kind of doesn't matter.
I'm with you.
Anyway, it's an interesting conversation. I know it's a thing with performance marketers, a lot of performance marketers, a lot of digital marketers measuring ROAS. But then I went back to Tom Roach's article about ROAS and ROI, and like, it's just, the more I think about it, the more confused I get about it. It sounds great, but it's like, it's just more confusing now to me than it ever has been. I just don't, like, I understand it, but I don't get it.
Honestly, it goes back to our conversations with Kai and Hannah. Like, we have over 400 KPIs as marketers.
Yeah. Yeah.
Why?
True. Yeah.
This for me just falls back into this. Like, this is not part of the period. I went back and looked. This is not part of the periodic table that is recommended by the Advertising Association.
Yeah.
So I feel like this is so niche. It is maybe a point of like efficiency and trying to optimize every dollar, every media facing dollar to the max opportunity. But like I feel like when you're down in that level and you're making these tweaks at here, I think you're missing the bigger opportunity that is actually presented. Now, again, this may work for pure players, established brands, or I don't know, you're really hyper focused. Maybe you're a startup, you're really hyper focused on, the short-term results, maybe. I don't see how this plays into your longer term strategy. I really don't. And maybe it's just because I don't understand it well enough yet.
Yeah. Well, and it could very well be that it's not at all for longer term strategy. It's just for short term strategy, which is legitimate. I mean, everybody's got a budget to hit and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, anyway, it was just, I just was curious to get your take on it.
Man, I was 2 head scratchers today. Mark, what's going on, man?
I don't know. But you know what I got next?
What do you got next?
Out of the way. Out of the way. Out of the way.
Yeah, let's go. What'd you find for us?
There's a cool, a friend of mine shared this video with me, or film, if you want to call it that. Evian. They've got this new campaign called Mountain of Youth. Like, whimsical, maybe would be a way to describe it. Like an acid trip. It's
so trippy.
But it's so fascinating. Anyway, there's like this whole thing. It's like this explorer in search of the Mountain of Youth, taunted by a group of alpine dwellers, the Evianers, who guard this source of precious water. And it's just so bizarre. And like, there's a cameo there's tons of cameos from their brand ambassadors that are in this. There's even a Yeti sighting. I mean, there's all kinds of really crazy, fascinating things, but it's interesting, and there's a cool soundtrack to it. And I don't know, you have to kind of see it. It's a really hard one to describe.
I tried to watch it once, and I'm like, I don't know what I'm watching.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I got to go back to it. Then I went back and watched the whole thing, and I'm like, huh?
It's cool. But it's all these like kind of distinctive assets that are embedded into it. And it's fun. And so they combined this with the print and at home, featuring a lot of their brand ambassadors. Anyway, you know what this is, V? This is the Echoverse.
Now I get it. Damn it.
Yeah, but it's a lot of fun. It's entertaining. I was trying to find out if there was a way to see the rating from System 1 on this. I couldn't find it, but anyway, it's kind of a fun ad. It's really fun, I think. And it
it's
kind of makes you smile. So I just thought it was a really interesting way to. And what also fascinates me about this, we were talking about Heinz a couple weeks ago. Like, these are products that are very commoditized, you could call it, right?
Totally.
And they have the most fascinating ways to try and get the brand out there. Whereas, like, some of the more like complicated brands, they just don't think about the creativity component and trying to like use their assets and all that kind of stuff. It's almost like a blessing to have something simple, like water in a bottle.
It's just water in a bottle
To make it.
Then you have liquid death too, right?
Yeah, same. Yeah,
different spin on it, but
but then they're all kind of in the same boat, right? Where they're just their creative is fascinating because they're trying to capture people's attention, as opposed to thinking the product is like the most amazing thing on the planet. Yeah. Anyway.
That's great.
Yeah.
It's great.
V, what do we got coming up next?
Well, we welcome Ella Ward, Senior Marketing Scientist from the Ehrenberg and Bass Institute. And our general theme was around rebranding. Her area of expertise is on packaging and distinctive assets. So we have a really great conversation just around how packaging influences sometimes even consumer behavior, but also like the emotional side of it. So I thought, it's a great conversation. I
think a great segue between the Evian thing and this one.
It's like we planned it.
Yeah. And then we got into all kinds of things about Haagen-Dazs with this one.
I wanted ice cream after that.
So badly.
So much. But it was a great conversation. I think it's, we usually talk about everything else around marketing strategy, but we've never really talked about packaging.
Yeah.
And I think it was just a refreshing conversation overall.
Totally. Yeah, she was great. She's brilliant. A lot of fun. Okay, and then one other thing, V, that I know. We're going to go chase some profitability.
Yeah,
today.
I have a meeting with profitability at 8.
Okay, that's a good call. Yeah. I think mine's at 8:30. Mine might be at 8:30. Yeah.
Profitability check-in.
Okay, buddy. It was good to catch up with you again. Yahoo! You too.